My sister slapped my 6-month-old baby across the face.
No warning, no hesitation, just reached across the dinner table and struck him. And the room went silent.
No one screamed. No one even gasped. They just sat there, frozen, like it was nothing, like it was normal. Except for my husband. David stood up slowly, in full military dress, not a hint of rage on his face, just calm, steady control, the kind of calm you only see from men trained to make life and death decisions in complete silence. He walked around the table, lifted our screaming baby into his arms, and said 9 words that would change everything. "You just struck my infant son. Explain yourself. Now."
You think that was the end of it?
That slap started a war, one that would take down a brand, destroy a fantasy, and force an entire family to face truths they'd buried for nearly 3 decades.
But they had no idea who they were up against. Hi, I'm Natalie. I'm 34, a military wife, a new mom, and apparently the family punching bag. Or I was.
Until that Christmas dinner. That night changed everything. See, for most of my life, I've played the role of the peacekeeper, the one who keeps her head down, doesn't stir the pot, supports everyone else's dreams, even when it meant shrinking my own. Especially for my sister, Vanessa. She was the golden child, the one with the big ideas, the big personality, the big future, while I was the quiet one, the good girl, the one who didn't make a scene. And I never did, until she laid a hand on my baby. We had just arrived at my parents' home in northern Oregon, 3 hours from where David and I were stationed at Fort Henderson. It was Lucas's first Christmas. He'd just learned to sit up by himself. He loved mashed sweet potatoes. He smiled at strangers. He babbled like he had secrets to tell the world. We were exhausted from the drive, but excited. I thought this would be a special weekend, a chance to introduce Lucas to his grandparents, his aunt, the rest of the Sterling family. I should have known better. Vanessa showed up 2 hours late, in a white Tesla with Oregon plates, ring lights, and a cameraman she hired off Craigslist. She burst in like she owned the house, ordering my mother to move the furniture because the angles were all wrong. And of course, my mother obeyed. Always has. You need to understand something about Vanessa. She's not just extra. She's a full-on brand, a lifestyle influencer with almost 200,000 followers. She built an entire career off curated family moments, boho Christmas tablescapes, and soft-filtered chaos that somehow always made her look like the hero. But none of it was real. That day, her latest project was a gratitude Christmas special. She was filming every moment to pitch to a production company for a potential reality series. That's why she needed control. The lighting, the dialogue, even our outfits. None of us were people to her. We were props. Background noise. I tried to stay calm. I really did. I carried Lucas in his car seat while Vanessa barked orders at the cameraman. David helped unload our bags and disappeared into the guest room to change Lucas's diaper. Meanwhile, my mother was polishing the silverware again for the 3rd time. Even though we were eating off disposable bamboo plates Vanessa brought from Portland because they were more sustainable on camera. My dad didn't say a word, just scrolled through his phone in the corner. Like always, he's perfected the art of ignoring chaos, especially when it's between his daughters. By the time we sat down for dinner, the room didn't even feel like my childhood home anymore. The framed family photos had been taken down and replaced with printed word art signs. The candles were battery-operated, flickering with artificial glow. The turkey had been kept under heat lamps for over an hour. Nothing felt real, except for the knot growing in my stomach. David finally came out with Lucas in his arms. Clean diaper, little bow tie, the same high chair David used as a kid restored, polished, and brought with us just for this dinner. We placed Lucas at the head of the table between us. He giggled at the lights and started reaching for the napkins.
Vanessa ignored him. She stood behind the camera and launched into her opening speech. 10 minutes of gratitude. 10 minutes of talking about tradition and authenticity and family first. She never mentioned David's return from deployment, never said Lucas's name, never once looked at the actual people sitting at the table. We were scenery. When she finally signaled cut, everyone exhaled. My mother rushed to serve her plate first, carefully arranging the stuffing and cranberry sauce like a magazine spread. Then she passed food around with rehearsed perfection, asking Vanessa if the angles were okay. David and I exchanged a look. It was the same look we'd shared during his briefings overseas, a signal that said, "Something's off. Stay sharp." Lucas was fine for the first few minutes, chewing his teething toy, drooling all over his bib, just being a baby, until Vanessa ordered the cameras back on. "We need candid family moments," she said. "Don't act for the camera, just be natural." Natural. We hadn't had a single natural moment since she walked in. But we tried. We passed food. We made small talk. Vanessa directed the cameraman to zoom in on laughter. When Lucas let out a tired whimper, I instinctively reached for him. Vanessa stopped me. "Let it play out," she whispered. "This is good stuff. It's real." Lucas's whimpers turned into soft cries, then full-on sobs. He was overtired, overstimulated, over it. I stood up. I think I should take him to the guest room. But Vanessa waved her hand. No. This is perfect. It's the real mess of family life. And that's when it happened. She leaned across the table and slapped him. Open palm, sharp sound. A red mark bloomed across his tiny cheek. The silence that followed was deafening. David's chair scraped the floor. And everything changed. David didn't raise his voice. He didn't rush or stumble. He simply stood. He walked slow, deliberate toward our son. Lucas was sobbing now, gasping between cries, red cheek pressed against the tray of the high chair. My heart clenched at the sight of him. David bent down, unbuckled Lucas, and lifted him gently, holding him close to his chest like he had so many nights when I couldn't settle him. Lucas clung to him instantly, little fingers gripping his father's uniform lapel, his cries fading into soft, hiccuping whimpers. And then David turned to Vanessa. "You just struck my infant son," he said. "Explain to me why you thought that was acceptable." Vanessa blinked, like she didn't understand the question. "He was being disruptive," she said, her voice high, defensive. "He was crying nonstop. I was trying to set a boundary." David didn't flinch. He's 6 months old. He doesn't understand boundaries. He understands pain. And you caused him pain. The room stayed silent. My mother sat frozen, her fork still halfway to her mouth. My father finally looked up from his phone, eyes wide but unmoving. No one moved. No one stood up. Except David. He shifted Lucas in his arms and turned to my mother. "Patricia, are you going to say anything?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Finally, a whisper. "Vanessa, honey, you shouldn't have." "Don't." David cut in, calm, controlled, but sharp. "Don't minimize this. Don't excuse it. And don't you dare pretend it was anything but what it was." It took everything in me not to collapse right then and there. Not because I was scared, but because for the first time in my life, someone stood up for me. For my child, for our family. No sugarcoating, no denial, no looking the other way. Just the truth, spoken out loud. Vanessa stood there, eyes darting between faces like she was scanning for support. For anyone to back her up, to say David was overreacting, that it wasn't a big deal. No one said a word. Not a single word. And then David delivered the blow she didn't see coming. "You're going to pack up your equipment," he said,
And you're going to leave. Now. You will not come near my family again until you understand what you've done and how you plan to make sure it never happens again. Vanessa's mouth fell open. You can't do that. You can't just ban me from Christmas. This is my family too. David didn't blink. Not anymore. Not if this is how you treat children. I couldn't speak. My hands were shaking as I gathered our things. My mother followed me into the guest room, trying to talk, trying to explain, trying to make it better. She didn't mean to hurt him. She's just stressed. This whole filming thing, she's under so much pressure.
She hit my baby. I said, that's not stress. That's violence.
She was trying to redirect him. That's how she described it. You know Vanessa. She's dramatic. Yes. But she loves you. She adores Lucas.
Then why didn't she stop when he cried?
My mother didn't answer. We left without another word. David carried Lucas to the car. I followed behind with the diaper bag, barely able to see through the fog of disbelief. Vanessa stood in the doorway yelling after us, her voice cracking with rage.
You're ruining everything over nothing. He's fine. Look at him. He's not even crying anymore.
David paused at the door, turned back. The fact that you think hitting a baby is nothing tells me everything I need to know about you, he said. And the fact that this family watched it happen and said nothing. That tells me everything else I need to know. And with that, we left. The silence in the car on the way home was heavy, not angry, just full. Lucas slept the whole drive, curled in his car seat, his tiny cheek still faintly red. David's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than I'd ever seen, but he didn't speak. Not until we pulled into the driveway. 3 hours later. He turned to me and said, "We're going to be okay. I've got you. I've got him. I don't care what your family says." That was not okay. I nodded, but something in me still couldn't process it. Not because I didn't believe it, but because it was the first time someone had ever said it out loud. Back home, I tried to settle. I changed Lucas, fed him, rocked him to sleep, sat on the couch in my still perfect Christmas dress, with tears falling silently down my face. David sat beside me, quiet, steady, present.
No big speeches.
Just there. And when I finally found my voice, I whispered the words that had been pressing against my chest since we left that house. No one's ever stood up for me like that before. David looked at me, eyes soft, hands warm against mine. "That's what real family does," he said. "They protect each other." I didn't know then that the slap was only the beginning. That the phone calls, the gaslighting, the unraveling of everything I thought was true, it would all come pouring out in the days ahead. But that night, I slept. Not because I was at peace, but because I knew finally that someone believed me. Someone saw me, and they weren't afraid to say, "No, that's not okay." And from that moment forward, neither was I. 3 days later, the phone rang. I was standing in the kitchen, still in my pajamas, staring at the untouched Christmas presents under our tree. David was feeding Lucas his morning bottle, humming softly while our son blinked up at him with those trusting eyes. The screen lit up. "Mom." I hesitated, then answered. Her voice came through like she'd been rehearsing it all night. Sweet, soft, urgent. "Natalie, honey, I know you're upset, but we really need to talk about what happened." I didn't respond. She took that as permission to keep going. "Vanessa feels awful. She didn't sleep at all. She wants to apologize, but she can't do that if you keep avoiding her calls." I pulled the phone from my ear for a moment, looked at David. He raised one eyebrow but said nothing. I returned the phone, my voice steady. "She hit my baby. There's not much more to say." Mom sighed. She barely touched him. "Sweetheart, you're blowing this way out of proportion. People make mistakes." She slapped him across the face while cameras were rolling. Because he was crying. There was a pause, then that phrase. The one I'd heard my whole life. You've always been dramatic. And there it was. Those 4 words had followed me for as long as I could remember. I'd cried when Vanessa pushed me down the stairs as a kid. I was being dramatic. I'd asked why she always got the bigger bedroom. Dramatic. I'd said it wasn't fair how she treated Mom like a personal assistant. Dramatic. Now she'd hit my child, and once again, I was being dramatic. It hit different this time. Because this time, I wasn't a little girl trying to earn love. I was a mother trying to protect her son. She was just trying to teach him boundaries. Mom added, sometimes kids need firm guidance. I clenched the phone, my hands shaking now. He's 6 months old. He doesn't need firm guidance. He needs protection. And you watched her hit him. You said nothing. David's reaction made it worse. He embarrassed her. He made it public. I closed my eyes. Of course. David was the problem now. Not Vanessa. Not the slap. The man who protected his son with calm precision had somehow become the villain. I hung up. An hour later, the phone rang again. This time, it was Dad. Natalie, he said in his usual measured tone, we all need to take a step back. Your mother told me about the conversation this morning. I think there's been some miscommunication. She hit him, Dad. On the face, we all saw it. Well, he said, clearing his throat. She said she was just trying to get his attention. Maybe redirect the fussing. Maybe she was a little firmer than necessary, but kids are resilient. I stared out the kitchen window, jaw clenched. She left a red mark. She didn't mean to. Does that make it better? She's not used to babies. She panicked. That's all. Another deflection. Another excuse. Another grown adult asking me to pretend it didn't happen. When the call ended, I felt hollow. How many times had they rewritten reality to protect Vanessa? And how many times had I gone along with it? David came in quietly. Lucas was asleep against his shoulder. What did he say he asked? I told him, word for word. David's expression didn't change, but his voice had an edge. So, your sister hits a baby on camera, then your parents call to say we're the problem. I nodded. They think we're blowing this up, that you overreacted, that I'm emotionally overwhelmed from postpartum stress. He took a long breath. They're gaslighting you. That word, gaslighting, I used to think it was just some therapy buzzword. But suddenly, it had a very specific meaning. It meant people you love are telling you not to believe your own eyes, your own feelings, your own instincts. And it meant I had a choice. Believe them, or believe myself. Later that afternoon, the third call came. Vanessa? Her voice was shaking, teary. She sounded désolée, younger, somehow. Natalie, I feel awful. I haven't been able to sleep. I keep replaying it in my head. I just want to fix this. For a moment, I felt something break open, hope relief. Maybe she was actually going to take responsibility. I held the phone tighter. Thank you for calling. Lucas is okay. But I need to understand why you did it. A pause. Then her voice hardened, just slightly. I don't think I really hit him. I think I just touched his cheek. You know how it is when emotions run high. Maybe it looked worse than it was. I froze. Vanessa. There was a sound when your hand hit him. He had a red mark. He went silent, then screamed. She laughed nervously. Babies cry. That's what they do. Maybe the lighting made it look worse. Maybe your stress is coloring how you remember it. My chest tightened. There it was again. Doubt, served with a smile. She continued. I think you and David were just overwhelmed. And when everyone's tense, small moments can seem huge. You're new parents. I get it. No, I said, you don't get to reframe this. But she didn't stop. 20 more minutes of soft blame shifting, emotional appeal, passive-aggressive concern. By the end of it, I felt dizzy, like I'd walked through a fog and lost my sense of direction. I went to Lucas's room, watched him sleep, one chubby fist curled near his cheek, the same cheek she struck. David came in behind me. "She's gaslighting me," I said quietly. "And they all are. They're trying to make me believe it didn't happen." He nodded, because admitting it did would mean admitting they failed to stop it. And that's when something shifted. I knew what I'd seen, what I'd heard, what I felt in my gut. And no amount of soft words or tearful voices would change that. This wasn't just a slap. It was a system built on silence. Jaito. But I wasn't going to be silent anymore. It happened 4 nights later. Lucas had just drifted off after a fussy evening. David and I sat on the couch, silent, our plates untouched on the coffee table. The TV buzzed in the background, some documentary about cults. I wasn't watching it. I was watching patterns. Patterns in people, in silence, in cycles that repeated unless someone broke them. That night, I made a decision. "I'm done," I said quietly. "I'm done being gaslit. I'm done tiptoeing around them. I'm done pretending this didn't happen." David looked up. "You want to cut them off?" I shook my head. No. Cutting them off lets them control the narrative. They'll say I'm emotional, say I abandoned the family, say I overreacted. No. I want them to see exactly what they've done. And I want everyone else to see it too. David leaned forward slowly, his voice low. "You want to go public?" I nodded. "Not just public. Documented, controlled, strategic." He didn't flinch, not even for a second. "Instead," he asked, "how do we start?" The first step was gathering evidence. We began with the Christmas video. Luckily, Vanessa's YouTube setup had been streaming in the background wide shot, high resolution, full audio. There it was, clear as day. Lucas's little body wriggling in the high chair. The sudden slap. The sharp sound. His face going slack with shock before the scream burst out. And then Vanessa's face expression frozen, eyes wide with fake concern. We clipped it, secured it, saved it to a private drive with redundant backups. Next came the phone calls. David had set up his work phone to record all incoming audio after the first call from my mother. Every manipulative line, every attempt to reframe the situation, every whispered "you're making this worse" was cataloged and time-stamped. Even Vanessa's half-apology made it in. We transcribed everything, highlighted contradictions, matched it with timestamps from the video. By the end of the week, we had a 36-page document titled Incident Report, December 24th, Abuse, Gaslighting, and Institutional Family Complicity. I sent it to my attorney friend Mia. She wasn't just any lawyer. Mia was a rising star in family law and child advocacy. Brilliant, vicious in court, and loyal like a wolf. She read the report in one sitting and texted me one line. "This is gold. If they push, we push back harder. I'll draft the cease and desist." David took the financial angle. He had access to tools most people didn't. Military-grade software, cybersecurity skills, and a memory like a steel trap. He began to dig into Vanessa's influencer business. Turns out, her channel had sponsorship deals with 3 national brands, one of which had a clear policy against violence in content or personal conduct. We documented the violation, clipped the footage, and filed anonymous reports through their ethics hotlines. No public move yet, just pressure, quiet, legal. The goal wasn't revenge for the sake of revenge. It was leverage. Meanwhile, I did something I hadn't done in years. I started journaling, not in a diary, but in a detailed, chronological log. Every call, every message, every time I felt I was being manipulated or questioned or pushed back into silence. It didn't just give me clarity. It gave me power. Because when you write the truth down, it becomes undeniable, even to yourself. A week later, the family group chat exploded. Vanessa had lost a sponsorship, one worth nearly $40,000. She was livid. "This is your fault," she texted. "You've ruined my income. You know how hard I worked for that partnership." I replied calmly. "You did that? When you hit a baby on camera?" She responded with a wall of messages: rage, denial, deflection, spinning like a child caught in a lie but refusing to apologize. She never once said sorry. Not once. The final straw came from my mother. She emailed me a letter, not handwritten, not heartfelt. Typed. Formal. She said she was disappointed in how I'd escalated the situation, that I was tearing the family apart, that I'd let David poison me against my own sister. That sentence hit like a punch. David had protected me, and now he was the scapegoat. Classic. I read the email 3 times. Then I archived it. And finally, I let myself grieve. Not for what had happened to Lucas, but for the fantasy that my family would ever be what I wanted it to be. That grief turned to steel. David saw the change in me the next morning. I woke early, made coffee, fed Lucas, opened my laptop and said, "I'm writing the post." David didn't ask what post. He just said, "Good." I didn't rush. I wrote it like a letter. Not angry, not defensive, just clear. I told the story, the slap, the aftermath, the silence, the denial, the gaslighting. I included no names, no accusations, just truth. And one line at the end: "I'm sharing this because silence protects abusers, and I will never let my son grow up thinking silence is strength." David read it, tweaked one sentence, then gave me a nod. "I'm proud of you." That night, I posted it on my personal Facebook. Public. No hashtags, no drama, just the post. And we waited. The next morning, it had over 22,000 shares. People I hadn't spoken to in years reached out. Nurses, teachers, mothers, even strangers, all saying the same thing. "Thank you. You are not alone." And just like that, the story wasn't just mine anymore. It was every woman who'd been told she was too sensitive. Every parent who'd been made to feel crazy for protecting their child. Every person who'd been gaslit into silence by the people they trusted most. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about reclamation. And we were only getting started. 2 days after the post went live, Vanessa called me. She didn't leave a voicemail. She texted instead, "Call me. This is getting out of control." I didn't respond. She tried again an hour later. "You're making yourself look crazy. This isn't going to end well for you." That one made me smile. Because what she didn't know is that I had barely started. Revenge isn't just anger. It's structure. And structure is what I do best. David and I had laid the groundwork carefully, like a legal chess game with emotional stakes. We weren't out to scream into the void. We were out to dismantle. And the next move: professional exposure. Vanessa had spent the last 3 years branding herself as a mindful parenting influencer. Yes, you heard that right. The same woman who slapped a baby on camera was regularly posting reels about gentle parenting, toddler yoga, and how to hold space for children's emotions. She had over 70,000 followers on Instagram, another 25,000 on YouTube, and had just signed a 6-month deal with a well-known organic baby food company. We gathered the receipts. Screenshots. Brand contracts she'd proudly posted about. Video timestamps. And then I made an anonymous submission to @TheMommyExpose, a rapidly growing Instagram account that specialized in calling out fake parenting influencers. I knew someone on their team. I sent them everything. They confirmed receipt within the hour. "This is going to explode," they said. And it did. Within 24 hours, they posted a blurred clip of Vanessa's slap. Captioned, "TW Child Harm. This gentle parenting coach preaches compassion online, but acts like this behind closed doors. Full story coming." Within 2 days, the baby food brand severed ties. Their official statement was short but brutal. "We do not condone violence against children in any form. The influencer partnership has been terminated, effective immediately." That deal was worth over $80,000. Gone. Vanessa posted a story that afternoon, crying in her car.
"I'm being targeted. My family is trying to ruin me. This is taken out of context."
She begged for privacy. But you can't beg for privacy after building your career on public image. And what came next was even better. The legal front. Mia, my attorney friend, had filed for a restraining order on behalf of Lucas, citing the slap, the history of verbal aggression from Vanessa during past family gatherings, and our desire to protect our child from further harm. It wasn't a criminal case, not yet, but the court granted the order. Vanessa was legally barred from contacting us or Lucas until further notice. She tried to protest it publicly, but screenshots don't lie. And once the transcripts of our phone calls leaked ones where she admitted to being too firm and not used to babies, even her die-hard fans started to question her narrative. Meanwhile, I started getting messages from her ex-boyfriend, from a former nanny, even from 2 moms who used to attend her parenting workshops. All of them told the same story. Vanessa had a pattern of controlling behavior, of emotional manipulation, of putting on a perfect front, then exploding behind closed doors. One woman shared how Vanessa had screamed at her toddler during a playdate. Another said she'd seen her throw a toy at a child. I asked if they'd be willing to share those stories anonymously. They said yes. We compiled them into a single post, carefully redacted, names removed, dates verified, and sent it to a parenting blog that had recently gone viral for exposing toxic momfluencers. They published it, titled "Behind the Hashtags, When Gentle Parenting Turns Violent." It had over 300,000 views in 48 hours. Vanessa's image shattered. But the most satisfying part was quiet. It wasn't public. It wasn't flashy. It was when my father emailed me short, direct, and unlike anything I'd ever seen from him. "Your mother and I owe you an apology. We were wrong. We failed to protect you. And we failed to protect Lucas. I hope someday you'll forgive us." I didn't cry. I just exhaled, like I'd been holding my breath for 30 years. David saw me reading the email and came over. He didn't say anything. He just wrapped his arms around me. I whispered, "We're not done yet." He nodded. "What's next?" Financial audit. Vanessa had borrowed money from my parents over the years. A lot of it. Roughly $75,000 total, based on what Mom once drunkenly revealed. David suggested a quiet move. We drafted a full financial breakdown, tracked Vanessa's visible spending, the designer bags, first-class flights, the leased Range Rover she posted about weekly. We presented it to my parents, not out of spite, but as a wake-up call. "You've been enabling this. She hasn't paid a cent back." At first, they tried to defend her. "She's had setbacks. She's still figuring things out." But I stayed firm. "She's been figuring it out for a decade, while raising hell, while hurting people, and you've paid for it every step of the way." 2 weeks later, they froze all financial support. No more rent assistance. No more emergencies. No more cash infusions under the table. Vanessa called it betrayal. I called it accountability. The final blow came from herself. She went live one night, tears streaming, said she felt attacked, abandoned, and misunderstood. Then she tried to pivot, said she was launching a new series, Healing After Hate. But no one bought it. The comments flooded in. "You hit a baby. You gaslit your own sister. You lied on camera. You need help, not followers. She disabled comments within an hour. By the end of the week, her follower count dropped by over 11,000. Brands went silent. Collaborators cut ties. And Vanessa vanished. For the first time in my life, she couldn't twist the story. Because this time, I controlled the narrative. This time, I had the evidence. This time, I had the truth. And no hashtag, no teary video, no performative apology could erase it. It's strange how silence can feel louder than chaos. Once Vanessa went quiet online, everything else followed like a wave rolling back after a storm. The calls stopped. The messages slowed. The drama dissolved not all at once, but gradually, like a house emptying out after a long, painful party. And for the first time in years, I could think clearly. I wasn't expecting sympathy, but it came anyway. Neighbors I barely knew brought over meals. One woman slipped a note under our door. It simply said, "Your strength gave me permission to speak up in my own home. Thank you." At daycare drop-off, one of the teachers gave me a quiet hug and whispered, "We all saw it. We just didn't know if we could say something. You did." I didn't cry, but I felt it. The warmth, the shift, the community. My parents took longer. Mom didn't call. But Dad did 3 weeks after Vanessa's last video. His voice was heavy, tired, but clear. "I want to visit just me, if that's okay." We sat on the back porch. Lucas played with blocks in the grass. Dad watched him with this look half sorrow, half awe. He didn't apologize again. He didn't need to. Instead, he said something that hit deeper. "You're a better parent than we ever were. And I wish I'd protected you sooner." That was enough. David stood by me through every single twist. But now, he started sleeping better. His shoulders relaxed. His laugh came quicker. We weren't just reacting anymore. We were living. Cooking together, reading again, planning a family trip to Oregon in the spring. It felt simple, which, after all we'd been through, felt revolutionary. As for Vanessa, she moved out of the city, deleted most of her social media. Some distant cousin told me she'd enrolled in some self-help retreat in Arizona, something about shadow work and radical healing. I didn't care. Because the truth, I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. That's the thing about revenge. Real revenge isn't just punishment. It's power reclaimed. It's silence broken. It's a life rebuilt with no permission asked. And Lucas, he's thriving. He doesn't remember the slap. He never will. But what he will grow up knowing is this. His mother didn't stay silent. She didn't protect appearances. She protected him. And that's the kind of legacy I can live with. Looking back, people often ask me, was it worth it? Was the fight, the exposure, the public shame, the sleepless nights, the risk of being labeled dramatic or vengeful? And I always answer the same way. Absolutely, yes. Because for once, someone like Vanessa didn't get away with it. She didn't get to rewrite the story. She didn't get to slap, lie, manipulate, cry on camera, and still win. She didn't get to hide behind filters or hashtags or crocodile tears. She faced real consequences. Not because I screamed, but because I planned. Because I used the tools she never thought I had. Because I didn't let her turn my silence into permission. And to anyone watching this, especially those still stuck in the cycle family or not, let me say this loud and clear. You are allowed to hold people accountable. Even if they're related to you, even if the rest of your family doesn't see it, even if everyone else tells you to keep the peace. Peace isn't real if it's built on silence and fear. You can be kind and still have boundaries. You can forgive without forgetting. You can love your family and still say, No more. You can walk away without guilt. And if they hurt your child, you owe them nothing. Not one more holiday. Not one more second of access. Not one more excuse. For those asking what happened to Vanessa in the long run, truth is, I don't really know. And I'm okay with that. Because healing doesn't require constant updates on someone else's downfall. Healing is when you no longer care if they're watching. Healing is when you laugh again without flinching. Healing is when your child looks up at you with joy, not fear. This wasn't just a story about revenge. It was a story about reclaiming my voice, about protecting my son, about breaking generational silence, about proving to myself and to others that you don't have to stay small just because it keeps others comfortable. And if you're still here, still watching, still listening, thank you. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for believing survivors. Thank you for letting this story be more than gossip. Let it be a mirror, a warning, a roadmap. Let it be fuel. Let it be freedom. Before you go, please like this video. Leave a comment below if you've ever had to cut off a toxic family member and how it changed your life. And don't forget to subscribe, because we have more stories to tell. And some of them are yours.